So, as I was posting earlier, I'm going to thin out the herd a little bit. Basically, I went out today and I purchased several cars at a show. So, I found a few more that kind of fit into my plans here a bit better. Um, Basically, I'm shooting for a little bit more realistic. Most modelers work on a scheme. So basically, I went kind of simple. I basically just like watching the trains going through town, and I'm trying to kind of put together the type of trains that you'd see here in Louisville. So, for example, you wouldn't see a Santa Fe locomotive that often, but I can't say it, folks, CSX is a pretty common train to see around here. The same thing goes for some of the cars that you get. For example, with my old set, I had what they referred to as Lehigh Valley Railroad, which was a train system in the New Jersey area, which you don't see them around here. Not to mention they went out of business about 20 or 30 years ago. So I'm slowly kind of winnowing those down, and I'm getting more realistic rolling stock. Now I'm going to try to shoot the video and kind of talk about what I've got here. So forgive me if we're jumping around a little bit. Now first of all, real quickly, just to give you an idea of end scale, that's a cigar and a lighter, as you can tell, just for scale. I've been building up my set of what's referred to as auto racks, basically, that haul cars. We see those quite a bit here in this area, since we do have a Ford plant very close by. I've got a couple of TTXs in the back, and this one I can't get the camera to focus very well, but that front one is CP Rail, Canadian Pacific Railway. And auto racks, you can see all sorts of auto racks. I've seen Ferromex, quite a few different ones. So I'm going to try to scooch back, and in the background you'll see another one of my projects. I've decided it's going to be Silver Mountain, and eventually I'll get me a little N-scale dude so he can be the man on the Silver Mountain. That's a joke, son. So we'll talk about some of the cars that are going to be passing by here in a second and why I chose them. Well, CSX, of course, everybody knows CSX at this point. See if we can get a little lighter. I'm trying to install some tunnel portals there, and I also need to start reshaping and collaring that foam a little bit more, smoothing that out. That's about 3 cans of spray foam, give or take, minus what I've been hacking off. So about this third car you're going to see passing by, this bright yellow, is a company called Railbox. Apparently back several years ago there was a shortage of rail cars, and so this company went into business essentially leasing rail cars to other companies like CSX, etc. Now, I've seen several of the rail boxes. Another one that you're going to see passing right behind the rail box is Norfolk Southern, which you do see quite a bit of Norfolk Southern in this area. Right behind him, you'll see Canadian National. Those are interesting because they say Canadian National on one side, and I'm going to take a stab at the French, Canadienne Nationale on the other side, since the pretty good chunk of Canada are francophones, or French speakers. Now behind him, coming up here, there's Norfolk Southern, CSX, Canadian National. There are a couple that are labeled SCL. Now I'm going to scoot around because I have to go look at Wikipedia again. So, SCL was the Seaboard Coastline, and they like a lot of companies, got bought by one company, then that company bought by somebody else, They got combined around with all sorts of folks, and in this area, apparently they'd gotten merged with the local company, Louisville and Nashville, the L&N, which doesn't exist anymore, which actually wound up, I believe they wound up getting merged into CSX, which is why you see a lot of their cars, or some of their cars. About the only other one that might be a little unusual is just, see if I can get him here, right in front of CN. I missed him. Right there he goes. And I believe that was what they called Golden West. And that was a kind of a, again, I think that was a kind of an amalgamation of a few different companies here. So, I'm going to let him get pulled up here. Actually, I'm going to let him get into the train tunnel there. I've got 2 tracks. The wife said that she wanted me to start eventually running an Amtrak. And I've also got to make some arrangements for power cords. So, give me a moment. So you may have noticed I have another train kind of poking out of the tunnel back there. And this one's mostly chemical companies. Which, again, I see CSX pulling a lot of these tankers through. I had a bunch of older style tankers, which, again, you just don't see that style of tanker really these days. I've got a couple that are probably still not especially prototypical. Just about all the tankers I think you see these days are either black or white in general. But you're still going to see some things that, you know, again, you might actually see in town here, like Archer, Daniels, Midland, corn sweeteners. A couple of the little stumpy ones that are called beer cans. Unfortunately, they don't have beer. And in N-scale, that wouldn't be much beer. Let's see here. Well, I mean, if it were full size, there'd be a lot of beer. I've also got a Burlington Northern, and I believe the one at the very end is a another well-known company, and I can't think of the name. So we're just going to wait for him to come around one more time. Let's see here. TILX is his operating marks. I'd have to look that one up. And about the only other thing that I've really done recently, I've got a few more intermodal cars. I'm gonna reach over here and grab this guy. You can just barely see it, but that is a 53-foot JB Hunt intermodal sitting on top of a Schneider 53. And the really cool thing, that JB Hunt, and again, my camera doesn't do such a hot job, but if you look, I'm going to put him right in the center of the screen. You can see he's got a reefer on the end, that refrigerated car. So, now my big problem is putting down some roads, and also basically getting a few more. I'd like to get some more N-scale tractor trailers. Roadway isn't really realistic these days because they, as a company, don't exist. They merged into somebody else. I just bought it because my dad used to drive for them. So I kind of thought it was nice. And my sisters will probably remember that, and maybe even some of their children. You can still see part of the old fleet back behind this one office building. And I also thought another cute note was, for those of you who know what they are, these little gray strips here, those are N-scale K-rails. If you've seen those concrete dividers that get put up during road construction, they actually make those in N-scale, so I thought it was kind of nifty. So, the next thing I'm going to have to do, I'm going to put some foam down so we've got a nice flat spot for me to start tacking things down to. I'm still deciding whether I want to just build one great big intermodal yard. The only problem with that is that it doesn't make sense for the train to just infinitely go around the same place. I'm trying to kind of break things up. I may put a divider right down the center to kind of turn it into a couple of different scenes. So anyway, gosh, this has been a long video, and I'm sure that I'm down to one person watching it. So I hope you enjoyed it, and hopefully I'll get a chance to make some more upgrades in the immediate future.